In the state of Oklahoma, there was a superintendent called Ryan Walters. And Ryan Walters is the school superintendent for Oklahoma. He is very Trumpian. He is advocating for Trump Bibles to be in all Oklahoma schools by this fall. Walters has suggested that schools should collect and report students for their immigration status, which violates a 1982 Supreme Court order that essentially says all students are guaranteed to education in this country, regardless of their immigration status. His latest stunt is forcing Oklahoma high schools to teach students that the 2020 election was stolen. So yes, high school students are going to learn about a stolen election. That will now be a part of the curriculum. He also wants to end wokeness in schools by removing content about Black Lives Matter, George Floyd's murder, and the Tulsa massacre. I should also let you know that Ryan Walters, the crazy Trumpian superintendent in the state of Oklahoma, is now considering running for governor of the state. It is also election day in the state of Idaho, and everything from school bonds to highway initiatives is on the ballot. Another part of today is the local library elections, and that is particularly of importance because Idaho is known for their state's book bans. It was in April of 2024 when Idaho Republicans in the state legislature passed a bill requiring libraries in the state to move harmful materials out. House Bill 710 looked to require Idaho public and school libraries to move materials deemed harmful to children or face lawsuits. According to local reporting, if libraries don't oblige within 60 days of receiving a notice, children or parents could receive $250 in statutory damages. This bill also threatens litigation against any entity that does not comply. Well, it did pass and it became law. And this year, multiple publishers have sued the state saying that this law puts librarians at risk, noting, quote, "It's vague and overbroad, putting librarians in the untenable position of having to guess whether any member of the public might file an objection to a book whose message they disagree with." Well, today, libraries are on the ballot in the state of Idaho. And this guy, Mike Hahn, he is running to be on the library board of trustees. And he's not the kind of candidate that you want to get elected. In the past, he has said comments referring to the board of trustees as, quote, "anti-children, anti-family, anti-free speech, and anti-community." He also said that he wants to see more taxpayer involvement in selecting books available at the library. Lance McGrath is the president of the Idaho Library Association, and he wrote in an op-ed in Idaho Capital Sun urging how imperative it is for people to vote today. Quote, "Recent debates in Idaho have highlighted the importance of library governance. Discussions around book content, access to information, and the role of libraries and communities have become increasingly prominent. Library elections across Idaho have gained attention due to efforts to ban certain books, censor library programming that some community members disfavor, and dissolve a library district. These issues underscore the critical role that the library trustees play in upholding the values of intellectual freedom, inclusivity, and community service. Libraries are more than just buildings with books. They are community hubs that provide resources for learning, connection, and growth. By voting in your local library district elections, you have a say in how these vital institutions are run." We will see how this turns out in terms of the results today, as we're going to be following that election closely. Once again, this is in Idaho, the local library elections, and you have a extremely, pro ban the books guy on the ballot. So we're going to be following that closely here on this show. In the state of North Dakota, Republicans have just voted to give themselves effectively the thought that they are above the law. I kid you not, they literally voted to give themselves protections from being prosecuted for conflicts of interest. This was so bad that the Republican governor of the state of North Dakota came out and said, "Hey guys, this is too far." And even though he rejected essentially and vetoed the major decision to give themselves such broad immunity, he did approve a more narrow immunity clause. In the state of Maine, the state House of Representatives failed to get enough Republican votes to make Medicaid funding available sooner. The vote was 93 to 50. So Maine Republicans have just voted against healthcare, as Republicans are trying to do the same thing at the federal level by cutting trillions of dollars in Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP benefits and funding to give tax cuts to the wealthiest among us. So that has just happened. In the state of Montana, a Republican effort to make major changes to the state's courts has failed. It's vetoed by their own governor. He said that this was unconstitutional, but said that, there was some judicial activism going on, especially on the state Supreme Court. And it's funny that he said that because Republican initiatives in the state of Montana has just continuously been getting struck down. Like, they are honestly not pleased with what's happening there. It was recently, just last week, that a Montana judge found the state's transgender care ban unconstitutional. Now, this could be appealed to Montana's Supreme Court, so this is a developing story here. Another story that we're following in the state of Montana is related to voter suppression. Republicans want to require voter ID laws, essentially, and get rid of election day registration and also change the definition of residency. They are now facing multiple lawsuits. The Montana Federation of Public Employees filed a lawsuit last week challenging these laws. Montana is among several Republican states with actions just like this, looking to suppress the vote. In Florida, there is similar litigation to counter a law that will charge voters with a felony if they collect more than 25 signed ballot petitions, other than their own or of those of immediate family members, and don't register with the state as a petition circulator. This is actually a real law in the state of Florida right now. FDH Executive Director Mitch Emerson told the Associated Press here, quote, "Volunteers are second-guessing whether they can legally help. Communities are confused." And that's exactly what the law was designed to do, to sow confusion and to try to shut down engagement before it starts. So once again, when you think about, people promoting democracy and representative democracy, because when it comes to, what representative democracy is, the core tenets of it really does start at the local level. Your local elections are more important than you think. Your local elections have more weight. They have more swage over your life than you think, actually. They are very, very powerful tools. And this new law in Florida is effectively going to curtail that. So now people who are volunteering to just, be pro-democracy, they're now going to have to second guess about being arrested and thrown in jail because of, helping people get registered to vote, or helping people, by getting ballot initiatives signed. In the state of Missouri, Republicans have voted to repeal the state's new paid sick leave law. According to the HuffPost, Missourians who just started accruing paid sick days this month are now likely to lose them by the end of August. The governor, Mike Kehoe, said that he will approve this measure. This year in February, Kansas Republicans overrid the governor and banned gender-affirming care for minors. In early March, I covered what was happening, in the states, what Republicans are doing in the states, because, frankly, it doesn't get enough national attention sometimes, as we're covering multiple other things that the Trump administration is doing, and, what's happening in the federal government. But it's important to cover what's happening here with, what Republicans are doing in the states, because while there is an authoritarian leader at the top, there are also authoritarian efforts by Republican legislators to curtail power here, to stop Democratic officials from succeeding in their agenda. One major example of that was in the state of North Carolina, and we covered this extensively here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show. In the state of North Carolina, Democrat Allison Riggs, she had rightfully won her seat last year in a great election. She won her seat. There was a 714 vote difference, and her Republican contender in this election who lost was Jefferson Griffin, and he basically, did multiple litigation, multiple lawsuits, contending the results of that election. Ultimately, he did not win. He was not successful with that. He lost. He conceded the results of that election. But what that was really was a voter suppression tactic, a tactic to nullify the votes of over 65,000 voters in the state of North Carolina, so that they could not have a voice. That's what that was. And yes, Justice Allison Riggs was recently sworn in as the Associate Justice on the state Supreme Court in North Carolina. This was her being sworn in recently. But the not so subtle and also, frankly, disheartening and enraging part about this story is that it does not just stop here. Yes, Democrats secured a win by, getting Allison Riggs on the court, but they've also just lost control of the state election board, which has broad implications over making policy decisions related to election, rules in the state of North Carolina. And the person that is overseeing elections in the state of North Carolina is the state auditor. No other state has a state auditor controlling their elections because it's inexplicable. It's completely antithetical to what the role even is. But only in the state of North Carolina, they have the state auditor controlling elections in the state. Why? Because when Democrats won last year, they won up and down the freaking ballot, except for the presidency in North Carolina. And one of the elections that Democrats did not win was the statewide race for auditor. And the auditor that got elected was a pro-Trump guy. So when Republicans were on their way out of the state legislature last year, they made multiple initiatives to curtail basically the incoming Democrats' power. And one of the things that they did was to make sure to install the state auditor as the head of elections in the state of North Carolina. But it wasn't just that. They made sure to effectively limit the new Democratic governor from doing anything. And now they're trying to continue to do that exactly. They are continuing to do that to block the Democratic governor of North Carolina, Josh Stein, from, appointing judges, from basically doing anything as governor of that state. Despite Democrats winning up and down the ballot, they're like, nope, we're going to stop that. Think about the implications of that here. Republicans are trying to consolidate power, and in many cases, they are succeeding across the country in doing so. This also, it gets so much worse because, some of Republicans' initiatives to curtail the judiciary is, stuff like making sure that if judges rule against them or judges seek to strike down the laws that they support, a judge will be fined $100,000. They're trying to curtail the judiciary. This is not just an authoritarian attacks that we're seeing at the federal level by the Trump administration. It's also authoritarian attacks on the rule of law, on local democracies all across the country. And it's not getting enough attention. But this can very well easily spiral out of control. They're trying to pass voter suppression laws. They're trying to pass laws to make sure that your kid is getting taught in school how the 2020 election was stolen. This is what Republicans are up to right now in the states. This is what they're doing. Vote in your local elections. Pay attention to what's happening. The midterms are just around the corner. And it's going to be quite a busy one. Lots of people are already announcing their candidacies for governors, for state senators, for mayors. Eyes open, heads up, stay focused. Your country needs you. It's a busy time. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to comment your questions, your concerns, and your thoughts on this video. If you are a fan of the Jeremiah Patterson Show, please recommend it to your family and friends. You can also support us by donating financially, as this is independent journalism and we rely on your donations to continue this crucial work. Another way you can support my work is by becoming a paid subscriber to my Substack at tjpsnews for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. I will see you tonight for my TJPS Evening News Show with two special guests covering mass deportation, attacks on the rule of law, and Trump's anti-DEI agenda. Be sure to follow us on Blue Sky and Substack at TJPS News. If you have any questions, news topic request, or want to do a collaboration, you can email me tjpsnews@gmail.com.